Imagine this. You're 12 years old, living in a quiet valley in the Bulgarian mountains. It's the year 1550. The morning mist clings low, curling through the sheep pens and over the damp grass like a slow, whispering ghost. You've known no other world than this, your father's calloused hands guiding yours as you tie feed sacks, your mother humming while baking warm, coarse bread. The jingle of sheep bells is your lullaby and your alarm clock. Life is simple, small, and safe, and then you hear them. Not voices, not footsteps, hooves, dozens of them, pounding against stone and earth. A sound that doesn't belong to your village or any place of peace. Your father stiffens, a shadow crossing his face. He doesn't speak. Your mother drops the clay jug she's holding. It shatters. So does the quiet. Everyone in the village knows what those hoofbeats mean. The Sultan's men have come. You duck behind a wooden cart, peering through the spokes. The riders dismount, cloaked in silk robes that seem untouched by dust or distance. Their eyes scan the villagers, not with suspicion, but calculation, as if they're choosing fruit from a market stall. They carry scrolls, lists, and they read faces like ledgers. One of them points at you. Your mother crumples to her knees, sobbing in a language they don't care to understand. Your father says nothing, because he knows resistance would mean death. Not for him, for all of you. You're torn from your home with words like honor and service trailing behind you, poisoned promises shouted as you're dragged away. You're told you'll rise to greatness, that you're lucky. But all you hear is your mother's sobs, fading into the trees behind you. You don't realize it yet, but you will never see her again. That cart rolling down the dirt road becomes your coffin. Not of body, but of childhood. You are not a son anymore, not a boy. You are cargo, a name on a list. This is the beginning of your life in the shadow of an empire, the Ottoman Empire, the most powerful force on earth at the time, but its grandeur hides rot. And behind the palace walls where you're being taken, the horrors awaiting you will make you long for those foggy mornings and jangled sheep bells like they were heaven. The cart jolts forward. You sit among other boys, some younger, some older, all silent. No one knows what to say, and even if they did, the fear has dried out your voices. You cling to the rough wooden boards like they might anchor you to the world you just lost. They don't. The journey lasts for weeks. You walk, you ride, you stumble through forests, across rivers, over broken mountain paths. The guards barely speak to you except to bark orders. You're fed enough to stay alive, but not enough to stay strong. At night, you sleep under the stars if the weather allows. Otherwise, you're herded into cramped shelters that smell of damp wood, urine, and despair. Boys vanish. Some fall sick and are left behind. Others simply stop moving, sit on the side of the road, and refuse to get up. The guards don't beg or threaten. They just walk on. Weakness is death. That's the first lesson you learn. The second comes on the third night. A boy tries to run. He can't be more than 14. Nikos, he said his name was. From a fishing village on the Greek coast. His face had sun-faded freckles, and he'd whispered stories to you about the sea, trying to distract himself. You liked him. He reminded you of home. But that night he slipped into the dark and made it only half a mile before the guards caught him. They dragged him back, stripped him to the waist, and beat him in front of all of you. Not to punish, to perform. His screams echoed across the fields like a hunted animal. You squeezed your eyes shut, but it didn't help. The sounds burrowed in deep. You would carry them for years. Escape was not just dangerous, it was impossible. By the time you reach the edge of the empire's capital, Istanbul, you've stopped looking people in the eye. You've learned to walk quietly, to breathe carefully, to never be noticed unless spoken to. Boys disappear even now, in the night, during rest stops, without a sound. Some are taken, others give up. Their absence is a warning, not a mystery. Then suddenly you see it. The city rises like a mirage, impossibly grand, impossibly far from your world. Domes stretch into the sky like stone lanterns. Minarets pierce the clouds. The Hagia Sophia looms in the distance, silent and monstrous. And the palace, the one they call Topkapi, sits like a jewel in a golden crown. It should be beautiful. It should take your breath away. But all you feel is dread. It settles in your stomach like a stone, unmoved by grandeur. You know somehow that this place, this shining city on the water, is not your salvation. It's your prison. At the gates, you're lined up with the other survivors. There were dozens when you started. Fewer now. Ottoman officials inspect you like livestock. They peer into your mouth, tap your teeth, examine your skin for blemishes, measure your height, judge your face. Some nod, others shake their heads. You feel their gazes like hands. Then comes the sorting. The strongest, the cleverest, the most beautiful. They're chosen for the palace school, the Enderun. That's where they say the empire's future servants are made. The rest, those not deemed worthy, are sent to the Janissary barracks. Still elite, still brutal, just a different kind of training. You're selected for the Enderun. They say it like it's a reward, like you should be proud. But when the man smiles at you, the one with the ink-stained fingers and the gold-trimmed robe, you see something behind his eyes. Something cold, something hungry. And you realize, this is not the end of the road. It's just the beginning of something much darker. You step through the gates of Topkapi Palace and the world outside dissolves behind stone and silence. The city, the mountains, your village, they fall away like dreams. All that remains is marble, and rules, and watching eyes. The Enderun school is nothing like a school. It's a maze of polished corridors, shaded courtyards, and rooms so ornate they seem like lies. Gold leaf on ceilings, calligraphy that dances across the walls, silence that presses down like snow. Beauty is everywhere, but it feels wrong. As if the palace is trying to seduce you into forgetting that it devours boys like you for breakfast. Your dormitory looks more like a tomb, long and narrow, lined with beds so perfectly arranged they don't feel meant for sleep. The silk sheets are cold and strange against your skin, a luxury that doesn't comfort but confines. That first night you don't sleep. No one does. The air is thick with muffled crying. Boys whisper in unfamiliar tongues. You clutch the small wooden cross your mother gave you, until it's taken from you at dawn. You're given new clothes, a new language, a new name. Your name is now Mesmet. Your religion is no longer yours. The ceremony is grand, full of incense and polished phrases, as if your conversion was something sacred. But you know, and they know, that this has nothing to do with faith. It's about obedience. It's about control. You repeat the words they teach you. You bow when they tell you. But inside, something small resists. A whisper of your old life still murmurs behind your eyes. Your mother's lullabies, the feel of sheep wool on your fingertips, the smell of baked bread. You try to hold on. But every day, the palace teaches you to forget. And then the real education begins. You learn languages, Turkish, Arabic, Persian. You memorize poems, legal codes, battle strategies. You're taught to write with precision, to calculate like a merchant, to debate like a diplomat. Your mind is sharpened, refined, filled. But none of it is meant to make you free. It's meant to make you useful. And beneath all this, under the surface of scholarship, lies something far more insidious. The palace doesn't just train you, it watches you. Older students linger too long at your bedside, Supervisors walk slowly past your dormitory, eyes scanning like hunters in a quiet forest. One night, an older boy named Amit sits beside you on your bed. He smiles, but his voice is low and heavy. "You don't know how things work here," he says, "but I can help. I can protect you." His hand rests on your shoulder. You freeze. He explains, without saying it outright, what you'd need to give him in return. A secret arrangement, gratitude that stays between us. There's no threat, but there doesn't have to be. You already understand the stakes. This is the choice the palace offers. Bend or break, give something up or have it taken. You say no. That night, you sleep with your back to the wall, and for days after, you wait for consequences that may never come, or may come when you least expect them. Around you, other boys make their own decisions. Some accept, some refuse. All of you lose something. You see how it works now, how power is traded, how beauty is currency, how silence is survival. The teachers who praise your essays may also test your boundaries. The guards who correct your posture may one day correct your behavior with something more than words. The palace teaches you math and music. But more than anything, it teaches you fear, dressed up as discipline. And over time, that fear shapes you. It doesn't just live in you, it becomes you. You learn to live in pieces. There is the face you wear in the classroom, attentive, eager, untroubled. There is the posture you adopt in the corridors, quiet, obedient, forgettable. And then, when no one is looking, there is what remains of you, hidden deep, like the last ember in a dying fire. But the palace is a place where even embers are dangerous, so it teaches you to smother them. The older boys who once feared the system have become part of it. They prey on the younger ones now, not just to survive, but to rise. You watch as the line between victim and enforcer blurs. Boys who cried themselves to sleep weeks ago now smile at the teachers, offer favors, whisper strategies. They adapt. Dmitri, taken from a nearby village like you, learns quickly. He plays the game, laughs when expected, flatters when necessary. He wins better food, extra privileges, private tutors. But his eyes, once full of questions, now reflect nothing. He no longer speaks of home. When new boys arrive, he looks at them with the same cold appraisal the officials once used on him. Stefanos chooses differently. He withdraws, never smiles, refuses advances, endures beatings in silence. He studies just enough to avoid punishment. One day, his bed is empty. No one asks why. No one dares. You try to find a middle path, enough compliance to stay safe, enough silence to stay intact. But the palace has no room for compromise. It demands total conversion. Not just of faith, but of self. There are rules no one writes down, invisible lines drawn in marble and shadow. Speak your old language, and you're beaten. Pray in your family's tradition, and you're humiliated. You once saw a boy named Milos stripped and left standing in the courtyard all day for being caught whispering his old prayers. The others were told to mock him. Most did. You didn't. But you also didn't speak up, because you know what happens to those who refuse to participate. The daily routine becomes a kind of erasure. Prayers before dawn, chores, study, more prayers, lessons in music, literature, warcraft. Obedience disguised as education, punishment disguised as discipline. Sometimes when you're alone, you test yourself. Whisper your real name under your breath just to see if it still sounds like you. Sometimes it doesn't. Then come the incentives. The palace doesn't only use pain, it also uses comfort. A hot bath, a second portion of food, access to books, music, cloth softer than anything you've ever worn. All offered, not freely, but as reward. And all contingent on one thing: surrender. You learn to calculate everything. A favor today could mean protection tomorrow. A compliment now might shield you later. Even your smile becomes a tool, not of happiness, but of survival. Some boys try to escape. A few even make it past the guards. One tried to swim across the Golden Horn. You remember his face, pale and trembling. When they dragged him back, he couldn't walk. They beat him in front of everyone. He never spoke again. He stayed in a corner of the dormitory, a breathing ghost, a warning etched into flesh and silence. And you keep moving, keep surviving. But somewhere inside, a voice keeps asking, if you survive by becoming what they want you to be, are you still you? Years pass, not that you count them anymore. You measure time differently now, by promotions, by punishments avoided, by the boys who come and go, by how much of your old self you can still remember. The answer grows smaller with each season. Eventually, they say you're ready. The ceremony is called chukma, your graduation, a grand ritual of polished boots and polished lies. You stand in new clothes, bearing a new title, among boys who've all been remade. You speak 3 languages now. You know astronomy, law, poetry, war. You can recite lines from Persian mystics and explain the mechanics of a trebuchet. You are everything they wanted you to become. And yet, you are not whole. You are no longer the frightened boy who trembled beside his father's sheep. But you are also not free. The price of your education was not just obedience, it was transformation. What they taught you was power. What they took was your reflection. Now you're part of the machine that once crushed you. Some of your classmates are sent to military posts. Others, like you, join the imperial administration, running provinces, collecting taxes, negotiating with foreign diplomats. You carry yourself like a servant of the empire, and in many ways you are. But sometimes, when you walk the palace halls, now with authority, you feel the ghosts. The younger boys, wide-eyed, eager to please. The ones who still believe good behavior will spare them. You recognize the fear behind their quiet smiles. You remember it. Some of the teachers smile at them the same way they once smiled at you. You know what that smile means now, and you know what's coming. You say nothing. You've learned not to. That's how the system survives, through silence, through repetition, through the broken turning into breakers. This is how it's always worked. Some boys, now men, try to change it. Quietly, carefully, most fail, a few disappear, others embrace it completely, becoming the very thing they once feared. They rise higher, gain wealth, command armies, but they don't sleep well, or for long. You exist somewhere in between, a man with power and a history no one speaks of. European diplomats write about the brilliance of the palace system, how it turns boys into administrators, soldiers, men of culture. They speak of discipline, achievement, sophistication. They marvel at the architecture, the gardens, the pageantry. They never ask what it cost. The palace today stands as a museum. Tourists wander its marble corridors, admiring the tiles, the swords, the robes once worn by viziers and sultans. They hear of the education system that produced the empire's finest minds. But they are not told about the boys, the real ones. The ones who vanished into its walls and emerged as someone else, or not at all. They do not hear your story, but we do. You, the boy taken from his family, stripped of his faith, his name, his voice. You, who learned to survive by forgetting who you were. You, who rose in rank while losing pieces of your soul. You, who walk the palace halls even now, in memory if not in body. You are not a statistic. You are not an exotic footnote. You are a child caught in the gears of empire. And your story matters. Not because you became someone powerful, but because you survived. and because the cost of your survival must never be forgotten.